Morning. Good morning. Happy Wednesday, everybody. A couple reminders before we get going as usual. Better job in the lunchroom, I think, from the last week from what we talked about. Reminder trays go to the tray port, not to the dumpsters. Also, bus after yourself. Show that kind courtesy and that respect for yourself, your school, and the people inside of it who also help take care of it. Number 2, cell phones are fair game when you're in here. That means it's hunting season and we're looking for them, okay? So that means if you're on your phone right now, you should probably put it on silent mode, put it in your pocket, make sure it doesn't come out for the next hour because it's fair game for us to take, okay? You should have your notes open, your World War II notes from last week we left off on the Doolittle race, for those of you that are doing that while I'm talking on here. Number 3, haven't seen any furniture moved into the labs like we asked, so nice job, 9th graders, that's been good as well. You haven't moved stuff in and kind of taken over those areas that we've been working on to keep free of clutter, all right? Nor have we seen you really kind of just loitering in those areas. We've seen you using the work and seen you guys in there doing stuff, and that's a positive as well. Saber time has been moved to mandatory. And
Morning, Legacy Sabers. It is Wednesday, Hump Day, February 24th, National Tortilla Chip Day. Go Doritos. Don't miss the 2nd annual Late Night in Saber City.
Listen, please, don't talk.
Own comic relief show. It is this Sunday at 7 p.m. in the auditorium. Admission for high school and middle school students is $3, adults $5, and children under, I'll say 7, $1. No passes will be accepted. You guys, it is a hilarious, fun, good time. Have I ever mentioned that Mr. Jacobson and Mr. Schmidt are really strange sometimes? On Thursday, that is tomorrow, February 25th, the Legacy High School Band Department will present 2 Midway band concerts in the auditorium here at Legacy. The first concert is 6 p.m. and will feature the concert band with special guests from the Simley 7th grade band. The second concert, 7:30 p.m., will feature the freshman band and wind ensemble. All 4 ensembles will be featured on a wide variety of concert literature. Both concerts will feature the hard work of very, very, very fine and talented students. We hope you can come for this concert. It will be an exciting night of very, very well put together music ensembles. Our band and music and choir departments rock, so come watch them tomorrow night. Repeats, track and field begins Monday, February 25th. If you have not, 29th. If you're not yet signed up, please see Coach Clemens. We will take anybody and everyone for track. They're talented, they're awesome. If you can run fast and turn left every 100 yards, you are good to go. Any junior or senior interested in learning more about a career as a chemical engineer, please consider attending the Career Forum event on Friday, March 4th at the Career Academy. Stop by the Counseling and Career Saber Center for more information from Mrs. Stern, our awesome career advisor, by February 25th. Parent-teacher conferences are next week, Monday and Tuesday, 4 to 7:45. Students, we love to meet your parents and visit with them about how awesome you're doing here at Legacy. The ACT is only 19 days away. We hope you've been preparing for the test. The resources discussed in the junior guidance are posted on the Counseling Saber Center Student Services tab webpage. The ACT Prep Prezi. Also, it's not too late to sign up for the ZAP seminar on February 29th and March 1st. See your counselor for the website. Mr. Jacobson's haiku for the day, driving late to work, stop and go is calling my name, Diet Pepsi.
Okay, last item on the agenda list as far as classes go. Don't worry, I'll wait for you guys.
Take out paper. If your Wi-Fi is acting up, guys, take out paper as backup plan.
Still waiting. Thank you. Your tests and quizzes, some of you are just getting introduced to electronic format, some of you have been taking it for a while. Either way, expectation for you when you take those is to not share material to each other. When you take a quiz online inside of a class, you should have one tab open, and that is the quiz, that's all. Any windows hidden behind that should also be closed, so you shouldn't have multiple programs up. The answers you got back in an email are a courtesy to you to help you study and practice and perform well on these quizzes, guys. You are not supposed to use them in any format other than a study tool for you. So make sure that we are not sharing those materials. We've seen a lot of kids inside of 9th grade using Google Docs to share answers with each other, using Google Hangouts, sharing assignments with each other. Some of you have been getting caught, some of you have not. Some of you are just simply waiting to get caught. So make positive decisions for yourself. Don't share your work with other people when they ask, even if it's your friend. They don't need to have that. Tell them, sorry man, you got to do your own work. I did my end, and that's the expectation for you. You've got to be a leader like that. Sometimes caring for a friend is also showing some tough love in that situation too. But cheating, guys, will not be tolerated. It goes in the grade book as a 0. It's not going to be something that's going to be allowable inside of this school. So make sure you're not sharing those quizzes, those docs, whatever it is that you guys feel like is an okay piece to do that. If you have a question about it, just ask your teacher, hey, can I share this with a friend? Or so-and-so was gone one day, can I share it with them? And see what the answer is. That'd be a better way to do it. Okay, 10 minutes down, let's talk about World War II. We entered the Pacific Theater, which was a tough quiz question for several of you last week. Okay, the Pacific Theater of Operations is what we're talking about. When we talked about Germany and what was going on in Europe, that was called the European Theater. Okay, we talked about Pearl Harbor last week. We talked about this man, Colonel Doolittle, and his raid on Japan, and how he struck back at Japan right at the end of the lecture last week. We should finish the Pacific Theater today. Again, kind of like the beginning. We're not going to go into in-depth into every battle here, but there's a couple of dates that you're going to need to understand. Kind of like Stalingrad was an important battle in Europe, we have some others that were also important in the Pacific. So to highlight a quick statement I made at the beginning of last week, the Japanese in the Pacific, they were doing quite well. America was not successful right away. They were not hitting the islands that they wanted to. They were not having success. The Japanese fleet was taking some losses, but not nearly as many as us. So for about the first year that we're actually fighting in the Pacific, we're really not successful, and I want you to understand that. There's going to be a turning point that we'll talk about briefly today. 2 of those turning points are going to come on the next 2 slides. The Battle of the Coral Sea isn't one that I think we necessarily need to write down or remember, but it's significant in World War II because it's the largest air battle of World War II that also takes place as like a Navy air battle. It's aircraft fighting aircraft over the ocean, taking off from aircraft carriers, trying to sink destroyers, trying to sink battleships, trying to sink aircraft carriers to fight each other. The map highlights kind of how they roll around in this area, and you can see they're somewhat just off the coast of New Guinea and kind of near the Philippines as well. Here, this really isn't taking place very close to Japan. You'll notice 3 ships down here. We've got one down here at the bottom called the Neosho. We've got the Shokaku here and the Lexington up top here. Excuse me, maybe it's Lexington here. The order doesn't matter. But the big point here is that 2 major Japanese battleships are sunk by by American attacks, and only 1 American battleship is going to be sunk in the process of that. And so this is a winning turnaround battle for the United States. This leads up to a much more significant battle that you will need to know called the Battle of Midway. If you take a look at this map, you can see where Alaska is in the top right corner. You can also see a tiny little island called Midway right here in the black circle, guys. You can also see the Hawaiian Islands, and this is obviously where Pearl Harbor would be, and you can see Japan. So Midway is so precisely named because it's about halfway between, a little more, but halfway between Japan and Pearl Harbor, or between the United States. Japan has a plan to come and attack us at Midway and take this as a staging point to get closer. Just like we were attempting to get closer to them, bit by bit by bit, by island hopping closer to Japan. Japan, they need to get close to us to attack us as well. So they're going to attack us at Midway. At the end of last week's lecture, I talked about 2 code-breaking machines. I talked about the German Enigma machine, and I talked about the Japanese Purple Code machine. At this point in the war, America has busted the Purple Code machine, and we now understand what the Japanese are trying to communicate to each other. We have the element of surprise. We may have broken the code, but they don't know we've broken the code. So when the Japanese decide to attack at Midway, we know it's coming. And we are going to use this to decisively strike against their fleet as it comes. And the Japanese are going to basically sell out here, okay? Throw the Hail Mary pass down into the end zone and try and win a big battle here. So they sent something along the lines of like 10 battleships, 13 cruisers, several destroyers, several aircraft carriers, and then some smaller boats in this area. It's really their whole fleet. It's kind of a sellout deal. It's win big or go home in this situation, guys. And they're going to send them in a couple different patterns towards Midway. America's going to hide its fleet back in this direction in an area where they really can't see. When you're in the ocean, you can kind of go a certain distance from them, and you can hide behind the horizon, so to speak. So they can't really see our fleet. We are going to send up planes to patrol around and see the Japanese as they approach this area, and we know they're coming, but they don't know that we're just waiting for the right time for our fleet to roll around the outside of them and attack them. As these battleships and destroyers pull up to Midway, we do just that. We flank around the outsides of them. We send our airplanes up. We waited until they got close enough to send several of our force up high into the air, and then we're going to attack. There's 5 really decisive minutes in this battle. 5 minutes really make the difference between whether the Japanese win or whether they lose. At one point, there's an aircraft carrier that after trying to sink several of the American ships, the Japanese planes land to refuel and to get new bombs put on them. So typically, guys, in a naval air warfare, you're going to have planes with 2 types of things on them. Bombs that they can fly over the top, dive down and drop out of the plane, and then ones that have torpedoes that they can fly over the ocean, drop into the water, and then those hit the water and they take towards the ships that they're headed for. So there could be some troubles with trying to equip your plane with the proper equipment depending on who you're fighting. Somewhere in the area of 20 planes land on one of the Japanese battleships, one of the larger ones. And right at the time of when it's happening, they're refueling, they're trying to get new weapons put on them, and they see the American fleet coming over, and then the commander makes the decision to switch the arms, whether it's from torpedoes to bombs or bombs to torpedoes, I don't remember that detail, but makes the decision to switch them, and all of a sudden now, it takes them longer to get back up in the air. In the meantime, the Americans had flown a pair of planes already at them. A bunch of dive bombers had waved and hadn't really hit the ship and gone through and dropped their bombs and were flying off and being chased by the Japanese Zero planes as they were making their way back to the American aircraft carrier. And that left a gap. Now we have a Japanese boat with 40, 50 planes or more sitting on it, full of fuel, full of bombs, sitting there like sitting ducks. This is the worst situation you could be in if you're an aircraft carrier. The deck is loaded with highly flammable and highly explosive things. So the next wave of American planes come, but all the other American planes and all the Zeros are gone because they chase those other planes. So they have this uncontested flight right at this battleship, and they're going to take out the entire battleship. They're going to drop bombs right through the deck of the battleship. The explosions are going to be as high as they can be seen for miles around the battlefield. And there's going to be a gigantic hole in the aircraft carrier that eventually begins sinking its way to the bottom of the ocean. And this is really a crippling blow to them. The Americans are going to sink several other ships, including 3 other aircraft carriers, and several cruisers, several battleships in the process. And it's going to be a huge American victory. If I were to write one thing down about the Battle of Midway, I would write down that it's a turning point in the Pacific theater. It changes the way the battle was going for the Americans. The Japanese are no longer the successful fighting force, and the Americans now are the force that's going to be successful moving forward. Last thing I'll point out, some people always ask, it's a fun trivia question, was America ever invaded? People will always say things like, well, in the Revolutionary War we had the British here, and in the War of 1812 we had the British here. But in World War II, you also had Japanese who had gone way up into the Aleutian Islands. This is just on top of Alaska, and they actually held these islands during the course of the war. We knew they were there, but they didn't really do anything, and as far as all they were there for was really scouting and measuring weather and really knowing, trying to do reconnaissance and understand what we're up to. So yes, Japanese troops were on American soil inside of World War II, and actually you can't really call them an invasion force, but they were actually occupying portions of our country at this time period. Random Google search for fun while I'm talking up here. The Japanese also attacked us with weather balloons. You can type in something like Japanese WWII weather balloon attack. You can read about that. That'll be an interesting one for you. This cartoon was written here, or drawn here, by a very famous person you guys all know. You know, can you see the name? It's a Dr. Seuss cartoon. And what we have here is we have somewhat a racist cartoon depicting the Japanese. We know this is Japanese because it's typical of an Asian culture to show a dragon. We also know it's Japanese because it's got the rising sun on its belly right here. That's how we know it's illustrating them. And Dr. Seuss really drew with the same way he draws in children's books and that you guys have read, but he also drew these somewhat racist squinty eyes on the dragon as well to illustrate the Japanese. At the top it says, well, well, seems to be a slight shifting of the Japanese current. And it shows us this Japanese dragon being hit by the Midway tide stick. This is symbolic that the tide of war has changed and it's gone into the American favor, saying that this was a huge part in changing